Hi, and welcome to Safe Schools. I'm Commander Curtis Grace with the Mobile Police Department.
I'm Andy Howard with the Mobile County Public School System.
Andy, I think we're going to have a great show. I know we are.
I know it too.
Have a great guest with a lot of valuable information to share, because we're in a time in which we need all the information we can gather to help us navigate things that are happening in society.
Today, like the name of the show, we're going to be talking actually about safe schools. I think that's going to be a great conversation.
Looking forward to it. We'll be right back.
It's a fact. Bullying happens. Bullying can lead to serious physical and emotional pain. But there are some things you can do to prevent or stop it. Stand up for the person who's being bullied. Let the bully know that it's not cool to pick on others. Take action by reporting the bully to a teacher or principal. In the end, when you help someone who's being bullied, you are also helping yourself.
And we're back. And so we'd like to welcome our guest, Dr. Barbarietta Turner-Pugh. She's an important person in the state of Alabama as far as the South is concerned. And this Mobile and Baldwin counties, is that right?
They're part of my district.
And that's part of your district. And you are assigned some responsibilities in terms of identifying and helping us to be safer in our schools.
That's correct.
First of all, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
welcome to the program. But before we get into that conversation, we always like our audience to meet our guest. And so, if you don't mind, could you share with us a little bit about from there to here, who Dr. Barbarietta Turner-Pugh is?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dr. Barbarietta Turner-Pugh. I hail from Monroe County.
Okay.
In the beginning, I taught school. I taught secondary language arts for 4 years, and from there I moved on to be a guidance counselor at a middle school for 3 years. 2014, our former superintendent, Dr. Kathy Murphy, transferred me to central office as the Director of Student Services.
Okay.
So as part of that job, I oversee just about a plethora when you're talking about student services, and one of those positions was safety coordinator for our district.
You're busy.
Yeah, that's what I do. And I would say that probably, give it about 4 years later in 2018, Dr. Marilyn Lewis, who is the Director of Prevention and Support at Alabama State Department of Education, asked me to join her Safe Council team. And during that time, I was able to learn from some of the finest representatives in the state of Alabama about school safety. And from that, I became the Region A District Administrator, which oversees 10 school districts in the Southeastern region.
Okay.
Wow, that's impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, very impressive. Well, I'm happy to have you here today, as well as Andy. We want to talk about safety, and you're an expert in your field. And we want to just kind of pick your brain a little bit and get you to really just share with us those things that the state is currently doing to address safety, and those things that you're still working on to make sure that you try to address those things that you foresee could be problems in the future.
Okay.
So, the Safe Council, securing Alabama's facilities of education, that is the template from which your position evolved, is that right? So tell us a little bit about that.
How did it come about? Well, you know, in 2018, Governor Ivey, she came up with the Safe Council, the Governor's Safe Council, based on after the shooting in Parkland. And based on the recommendations from that group of individuals, they decided to come up with a school safety task force. And that's where I evolved from, the school safety task force.
Okay.
Their issues were trying to make sure they keep Alabama schools safe so that we don't have some of the issues, because at that time during Parkland there were multiple school shootings.
Right.
And as we know, youth incidents with youth violence is on the rise. So as part of our job with the School Safety Task Force, there's 7 regions, so there's 7 of us who hail from that, who actually have, there's 3 of us who has background in school education. We have school resource officers. We also have a mental health expert, that's one of them. He's my partner that I work with a lot. And then also you have 2 sheriff deputies who serve on that committee. So part of that job, we come in and our job is to go and analyze school safety. We go through different schools, we go through various trainings. We did trainings with the FBI. We also push out trainings every quarter for all the schools, the district coordinators, the administrators. We go inside of the school and do threat assessment, we threat assess. So that's part of what the School Safety Task Force is. Our job is to go through the schools in the state of Alabama and look out for those areas that need improvement in school safety.
Okay, so once you took on this task, so how's it going? So are things getting better since 18? Are things getting more challenging?
In the beginning, I would say that with our job, what we've done is help make things better.
Right.
Actually, because the governor, and I really appreciate her for doing this, she put a line item budget into legislators, into the session to fund school safety.
Okay.
So part of that was to, with Title IV funding. Also that was with the new ESSER, the EFT. And part of that funding is to implement new school safety protocols. So to make sure that the cameras are updated.
Right.
That you have SRO officers on your campuses. And now what we're doing, where we're kind of worried, is because of what we would say pre-COVID / post-COVID.
Right.
You're going to be dealing with a lot of mental health issues because a lot of students were out of school. We don't know what they were going through.
Yeah.
Physical, mentally. We've come to find out a lot of them weren't able to get their meds during that time. So with school being open, no virtual, but face-to-face, this year they put in funding for not school resource officers, but school-based social workers.
Social workers.
And especially for your rural districts who did not have that capability, because although I can speak from a guidance counselor background, we're not trained in DSM-4 or 5 because we're more on school guidance, getting kids to the next level
Yes.
for career after school.
Right.
So having those school-based social workers, they're going to be able to deal with those mental illnesses that children are coming back to school with.
2 years of not being in school almost. That's a long time out of function and form, and now they're trying to come back and start like everything is just as it was.
Well, and that's one of the issues. There have been what we consider little mini adults. They've been allowed, probably some of them, to control the home. A lot of them have been running the streets, and then we found out that a lot of them have been working jobs to help the family because of the families have lost jobs.
Yes.
So when you don't have that discipline or someone actually being in a, I guess, controlled environment, we're now concerned about how is that going to look when they walk back into the school and they have to follow a pattern.
So so basically you're dealing with not only the issues that were already present in day-to-day operations of schools as it relates to safety, but now you're having to deal with the new issues that haven't necessarily revealed themselves yet, but when they do, you have to pivot and make the adjustments. This is a great topic to stay on, and we're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to be right back.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Renee Phillips, your host of Homeroom. Will you join us as we talk with the students, teachers, and staff about all of the great things happening in our schools?
That's right, Renee. Not only are we here to keep you informed about the great things happening in our schools, but to also keep you updated on safety issues.
Our show, Safe Schools, looks at ways to keep your child and our students safe. Not only are we looking at ways to keep your child and our students safe, but to keep you informed on how to connect with us.
Manténgase informado aquí en Conexión a Padres.
And we also score big from pre-K to high school with MCPSS athletics.
And then Inside Education puts it all together for you, showing you the ins and outs about news and events taking place across the Mobile County Public School District. We do this to keep you informed.
And welcome back. Youth first aid. So, you know, we were talking about these kids coming back and the differences that we're going to experience and the differences that they have experienced and absences and the long period of time that they've not been in a normal school setting. Let's talk about that. What is that youth first aid and what is it intended to do?
All right, last year, Governor Ivey's legislative team put aside funding for every school system to have what we call social workers, and not only social workers, but you had to have social worker coordinators into your schools. So every school district in the state of Alabama had a social worker coordinator. Based off that, those social worker coordinators had to be trained in youth first aid mental health training.
Okay.
And that youth first aid mental health training was to help align and teach teachers and parents and administrators how to deal with students and to watch those warning signs to see what mental health issues they were dealing with. Now, come from that, our goal for this year with the new funding is to have every staff member trained as a youth first aid, to be certified in youth first aid.
Very important.
Not only that, Dr. Lewis also has a program that she's pushing out this year, because in our schools, a lot of the schools by the Jennifer Claire Moore Foundation, we have what's called our peer leaders. So we plan to turn them into youth first aid mental health trainers, our peer leaders, who would now, they would take on the role as well as under the social workers wings to help us, because we've learned that students will maybe talk to children before, or their peers before they talk to the adults.
Right.
And that has been very helpful in some of the schools for us to being able to curve issues or to let us know if an ongoing problem is about to happen before there's an incident.
And clearly you all have done your homework to determine that you needed to do this, that you needed to facilitate this training to everyone.
Yes.
And what are some of the things that made you all come to that decision?
Well, we started analyzing recent school shootings, even all the way back to Columbine. And at some point, you have to understand that there were some triggers that led to these issues. Even when you had the gentleman, and I can't think of the name at this moment, I brought her to our district, Michelle Gay, when you had the school shooting. And one of the issues that we looked at was that he had some mental health issues background that was going on, and they were getting ready to send him off, and that set him on a tailspin. So even when we talk about the gentleman at Parkland, if you go back and look at his history, you will realize that he was under the guidance of a psychiatrist. And so when we looked at those things, we're starting to say, okay, what are those triggers that are setting these kids off? Yeah, you would want to say that these were not issues that they would be normal, but you got to understand that if a person goes in any type of violence, they're dealing with some kind of internal emotions. And so I can give you an example of a situation I've encountered with a third grader. Didn't realize she was hearing voices, and she was dealing with schizophrenic, homicidal intentions. Wouldn't have known this until we talked to the parents, and they kept it undercover for so long. And so when they started going down by generations, they started realizing that even the grandmother had bipolarism.
Yes.
And by being untreated, it manifested. And so it can end up going. So that was one of the reasons we said, okay, let's look at the mental health side of this.
Wow.
And if we can identify and teach teachers and administrators to identify those signs in students and start with your crisis management teams and your threat assessment teams, you may have a chance to go ahead and get those students the help that they may not have been getting in the beginning.
You know, it's interesting how people, parents and teachers alike, will see somebody not okay and try to rationalize it away. Well, just get over it. You'll be all right. You know?
And that's not easy.
No.
Because when they're hearing those voices talking to them, or they're dealing with conflict and issues, why am I feeling this way, and they're imbalanced, you can't just get over that.
That's right.
I think a lot of people sometimes find themselves, like Andy said, they often look at or they compare current day issues that they see in youth as being something that is relatable from a past generation, and that they dealt with something similar, when it's hard, if not impossible, to truly say that they're the same.
And it is. Our youth deals with a lot that we just, and I would tell them, probably come from what I call helicopter parents.
Mm-hmm.
Our youth deal with things that we didn't have to deal with: peer pressure,
Mm-hmm.
social media.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So when they're dealing with all of those issues, and you know, if I can't take it out on the person at home, then who do I take it out on?
Right.
That's right.
I go to the school, and usually if we've noticed with school safety, a lot of our issues don't happen in the school. They come from outside the school and brought into the school.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that was one of our goals, to start the crisis management and threat assessment trainings.
That's right.
So part of those trainings is where we go in and we have the principals to identify a group of 6 to 7 teachers, depending on the size of the school. And that has to be a guidance counselor, of course, your school nurse, your psychometrist, social worker. And we also ask them to start giving us individuals that may relate to students every day. That could be your CMP worker, that could be your custodian, because who does those kids talk to most of the time?
Right.
It's a custodian seeing that kid in the bathroom too much, too long, and if they see it, they need to say something to somebody.
But how hard is that? How hard is it to get people to view themselves outside of the box they typically put themselves in terms of responsibility? It's very hard, I believe, when they think that that's not their job.
Yes.
But today it's become part of our job, and maybe it should have been part of our job a long time ago.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what we found out from some of the schools that I visited is that it always have to have an incident to happen before they realize, oh, this is real, it can happen here. Because everyone has the mindset, it can't happen here. And I always tell them to have the mindset, be prepared for when it happens here.
Yeah,
it can't happen here, but it's going to happen.
Right.
Yeah, we're past that point now. There's no place that you can say it can't happen. No place. And you know, we during the course of the day have probably the largest population in our school buildings of any community in the country. We're a microcosm of that city.
Well, I always say that a school is no more than a city within a city.
That's
Anything
true.
that happens outside happens on the inside. And until we start to realize that, then we'll constantly be responding to something versus preventing something.
And that's true. Mobile, as you know, of course, is one of my systems that I have too, and it was on the governor's radar when there was an incident. And so I've had the opportunity to walk through some of your schools. And that's another part of when you were asking what were some of the tasks that we're put with the Safety Task Force. We actually come in your settings to, and I have to say you have great schools, by the way, but we come in to look if there's anything that might have been missed. And when I say that, you all are here every day. So you see what comes usual to you, but I may go in and I can see little hidden spots where
We're looking at the trees, you're looking at the forest.
Yes.
Yes.
I may see where cameras may need to be. I may go in and say, well, you got a large conglomeration of students, but I don't see any teachers outside the classroom doors watching to see what's going on at the time.
Right.
So that's our job. We come in to look at the threat assessment, the safety aspect of what may you miss that we may need to add to your system.
That's a very important point. We're going to take a brief break at this time, and we're going to revisit that when we come back.
Okay.
As a student in the Mobile County Public Schools, there are a few things I've come to expect. One is a quality education, and the other is a quality lunch. Not only are our school meals well balanced, meeting all federal nutritional standards, but they also have less fat, fewer calories, and they taste really good. Oh, and I forgot to mention, our school lunches contain whole wheat, grains, fruits, and vegetables to give me the energy and brain power to get me through the day.
Do you have what it takes to be an Envision graduate? We are pioneering students to be all they can be, from 6th grade all the way to 12th grade.
I definitely would recommend Envision to other students who feel the way I feel. They really work with you, and they've gotten tutors, and you have online teachers to talk to.
It starts right here. It starts right now. Envision Virtual Academy. Enroll today.
And welcome back. Dr. Turner, you were talking about assessing threats, and there are the physical assessment of threats, you know, the building and its infrastructure in terms of safety. And then you also were talking about the people part of that. So let's visit that a little more.
Okay, when we're talking about threat assessment and crisis management, of course we know, what your buildings, that's easy to assess. You know, are all your doors locked, classroom doors locked? Are you being cognizant of who's on campus? But when you're looking at the threat assessment as far as your students, and I tell everybody, don't even look at your students, you gotta look at your staff as well, because they're dealing with different type of issues.
That's right.
Don't always look at, you know, we take it back, they always say when we do our trainings, don't look at your students everybody put his Columbine with the black trench coat, black trench coats. Well, they belong to a club. That wasn't what they were wearing, because if you think about a student in the wintertime, if they came on with a long black coat, you're not going to even look at them.
Right.
It's only if they came in the summertime. So you take a look at all of your students. You put all your students on a tier 1 scale, and you look at all of the students, and you look at you have to look at their patterns. And this is what we tell school systems: start looking at their patterns from elementary school, going on to middle and junior high, and keep a running documentation of what has gone on in those students' lives or in the school, so that by the time they do make it to high school, you have an idea that this may be a student we need to target and line them up with some supportive help.
I'm always saying, you know, when you see somebody on television for doing something, I knew them first.
One of the things, and one of the things too is that what you're describing requires more collaboration among the schools, the elementary, middle, and high schools, really collaborating outside of the traditional norms in which they collaborate.
Exactly. Usually when those students will leave the elementary school, I'll give you an example. Most of our babies don't do a lot in elementary school, but you do need to look at those, because we're starting to notice now a lot of our elementary students have having issues not wanting to come to school. Increased absence.
That's right.
So then when they get to the middle school, they may have little infractions, might have brought a weapon on school. And we say a weapon, could have been a pocket knife, could have been or they might have written a note or letter saying that I feel like committing suicide, or I'm going to do some drawings. We've noticed several drawings that we then start looking into, and I'll give you an example of a young man. We start noticing some drawings, and then once you start looking at what he was writing, he said, I have no one to talk to. But he had a grandmother, but the problem was that's all he had he was living with was the grandmother. He didn't have a male role figure to talk to.
That's right.
To know how to handle what was going on in his life.
So he never had that skill set present to be engaged and evolve him as a person into a young man.
Exactly. And so when we start looking at that at one of the schools, and we put this young man with a male role model who was part of that crisis management and threat assessment team, that changed the whole dynamic. And that child ended up graduating and going out to the military.
Right.
Okay. So the goal of your threat assessment training is to have those teams together, and as you say, you have a vertical team building where you collaborate with each other to start assessing. And I tell everyone, assess every student. It doesn't matter their background or where they come from, because students of all socioeconomic backgrounds are going to have some issues that they're dealing with.
That's right.
And the goal is to try to work it through them before they, you know, their alternative is, I can't go any other way, so let me harm someone.
You know, what you're talking about right now is just vigilance, being very observing of things that we tend to overlook. And that requires a new mindset. For teachers and for school administrators and for parents.
Yes.
So is there anything that we're doing to help, I guess, jumpstart that mindset?
The teachers.
The teachers. As I said before, a lot of those is what we've done now is we started going into each of our regions and we're holding those trainings with the teachers.
Okay.
Yes.
We're we collaborate, and we even make sure that we're on call 24/7. So We hold those, we do parent trainings. We hold those trainings
Yes.
with the parents. We
'Cause they
hold
need
those
it too.
trainings
You're
with the
right.
community leaders. Because you even need to realize that it's in the church, that it may be, we bring in the mayors, we bring in the police chiefs, the captains. We also, even with daycares, we start holding those because remember now, this starts from infant on up as well. So a lot of the trainings are done with your school personnel, and we make sure bus drivers are even trained, your substitutes are trained. Everybody's trained because you may have a sub in there today and there could be an incident and they need to be able to threat assess and know what's going
Absolutely.
on.
So, Doc, I'm sorry, Andy.
Go ahead.
As we start to wrap up our discussion, I want to give you a little time to kind of expound on things that you would want to share with parents as well as with school leaders for the upcoming school year.
I would ask for what I would like to share with our parents for the upcoming school year is please be vigilant. You know, I know that one of the things we talk about is how parents, we talk about everything is off limits at home with their kids. You know, I don't go on their cell phones, I don't go in their room. Please be very vigilant of what your child is doing. Look if they're changing their style of dress, if they're changing their style of eating, if they're changing, even their friends start changing. Start watching some of their demeanors. We're also asking parents to please start collaborating with the school system. Let the school know if there's something going on outside of school with your child so that they can start talking and having those conversations. I also would like for parents to know that this year that there are mental health coordinators and school-based social workers, even in your rural schools. Every school system is required to have those this year. So if your child is visiting mental health, let them know so that those school-based social workers will have already an idea of how to work with them inside the school. Also, I'm asking parents that, and our school administrators, the School Safety Task Force is going to push out a new set of trainings starting in September this year. And those trainings go from September until April. So when we send these messages out, we ask them to please sign up and log on. So we're going to do a lot of them virtual.
Okay.
And so that our parents will get that one-on-one training from us. And also that if they need us to come out to their homes, I serve Mobile County. So if there are things that the school administrators or the parents need and they need some ideas or safety recommendations what to do with their children, please contact me. My number is 334-462-1315. And I will bring a team with me to come out and do those parenting classes as well.
Dr. Turner, this has been a great conversation. Thank you for taking time out to come visit with us today and share this important information. Andy, I think we've had a great program today, and we're going to, well, first I salute you for doing this.
Thank you. And absolutely, and I appreciate what you're doing, and thank you for doing the show.
Thank you.
This has been Safe Schools. Thank you.